We're going to look at our second lesson on human biology, and we're looking today at gas exchange in humans. First of all, we're going to deal with what the word gas exchange means and why it's important in human beings. So every cell in our body carries out respiration. It's very important that we recognise that this word respiration and gas exchange are different things. Respiration takes place in the mitochondria of every cell in our body. And respiration is really important because glucose and oxygen react to produce carbon dioxide and water. That process allows the body to release energy from glucose. It does it in the form of something called ATP, which we'll deal with much later on. It's important also to recognise that this isn't a correct or proper chemical equation. I've just written it like this because it's a little bit easier that way. So basically what happens is that we have our bloodstream, and our bloodstream is going to every cell in the body, and every one of those cells is going to be requiring oxygen, so oxygen is needed, and every one of those cells through the process of respiration is going to be producing carbon dioxide, and we need to find a way of getting that into the air, into the atmosphere. The atmosphere contains about 20% oxygen. So oxygen is going to come out, and then into the air we're going to release carbon dioxide. So the gas exchange system is needed to get oxygen into the bloodstream and to get carbon dioxide out of the bloodstream into the air. Before we go on, what I would like you to do is have a look at the 4 questions here, and I'm going to stop speaking for a moment so you can pause the video, and then I will give you the answers. So you should have answered those questions, and then those are the answers there. So we're now going to look at how this process of gas exchange works in human beings. We're going to deal with the mechanism by how the lungs inflate and deflate in a future lesson. Today we're just going to look at the main structures and how they're adapted to maximise the rate of gas exchange. So there is a large structure that takes air from the mouth, from the back of the throat to the lungs, and that structure is called the trachea. The trachea branches into 2 structures called the bronchus, and this happens inside the lungs. So this is my right lung, and this is the left lung. Obviously, if you're looking at it, those are the wrong way round, but we're writing it as if it was us on the page, lying backwards. So that means that this is called the left bronchus, and this is called the right bronchus. And then these structures themselves, sort of like a tree, start branching into even smaller structures, and these are called the bronchioles. And then each of these structures starts to branch out even more themselves, and they end in little air sacs called the alveoli. So I'm going to label that one, I apologise, alveoli. Alveoli is the plural word, in this case, but I'm just labelling one of them. So, just to summarise, the main structure that comes from the back of the throat into the lungs is called the trachea. The trachea breaks into two branches, the right bronchus and the left bronchus. Each of the bronchus break into smaller structures called the bronchioles, and at the end of each of those there'll be even smaller structures called the alveoli. So, what I'd like you to do now is copy this diagram and see if you can label the structure from memory. I'll pause the video again, and once you've done it once, do the same thing again. Okay, so we are now going to look at what happens in the alveoli themselves and how they're adapted in order for us to be able to maximise the amount of air or the gases that are exchanged. So if we look at an enlarged version of one of the alveoli and then draw next to it the blood stream which runs just around the outside of it, so there's a very small, very capillary blood vessel that runs around the outside of the alveoli. So coming into the alveoli is going to be air, and that air is going to contain oxygen and some nitrogen, which doesn't really get involved in this. And we know that the bloodstream is going to be releasing carbon dioxide into the alveoli, and the oxygen that's present in the air is going to go into the bloodstream. Now, the alveoli and the whole lung structure is adapted to make this happen very efficiently. Point one, there's lots of alveoli, so that maximises the number of air pockets and maximises the surface area. There is a very good blood supply, so there are lots of capillaries, lots of very small blood vessels all around the lungs which are running next to the alveoli, which mean that they can absorb lots of oxygen and release lots of carbon dioxide, and the blood vessel walls are very thin. So if you want to take a moment to copy that diagram down and pause the video. Once you've done that, there are a second set of questions for you to have a look at. Again, if you want to pause the video now, and then once you've done that, there are some questions for you to have a look at. There will also be some additional work and a quiz for you to have a go on the Google Classroom.